This with us. My name is Father Michael Anderson. I'm the rector here at St. Columba's, and it's a privilege to have you. You are most welcome in this place. We were eager to host this because we believe at St. Columba's that we have a mandate through the teachings of our Lord Jesus Christ to care for our immigrant brothers and sisters. And that's exactly what we want to learn to do better. And we think that this is such an important topic. It's obviously very sensitive and important. It's natural that we are going to disagree with one another. It's natural there's going to be different perspectives on this. In moments like this, the temptation is that we're going to assume the worst in the person with whom we disagree. I'm going to invite you not to do that. I'm going to invite you to think the best, to assume the best in them, and to listen with curiosity and to treat one another with respect and kindness and compassion. If something strikes you as difficult or unfamiliar, lean into it. Lean into it with a spirit of openness rather than suspicion. Once again, thank you for being here. We're grateful for your presence. Let me pray for us. Divine Spirit, dwell amongst us this day. Give us eyes to see those with whom you would have us care. Give us hearts of compassion and kindness. Give us hearts of understanding. Would we listen with curiosity? Would we listen sprinkled with love? Bless us today and bless our speaker, Vanessa. Amen. We are pleased to have with us leading immigrant advocate, Vanessa Frank. Vanessa graduated with a degree in public policy from Stanford in 1997 and Stanford Law School in 2003. Vanessa has been advocating for immigration rights since the fight against Prop 187 in 1994, and for the last 16 years, she has run her own law practice while serving as a consultant to a range of government, nonprofit, advocacy organizations on the Central Coast. This year, Vanessa founded Mariposa, a non-governmental advocacy and legal services nonprofit dedicated to training first-generation young adults for legal and advocacy careers while providing top-quality services to our Central Coast families. Vanessa, welcome. The floor is yours.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much. I'll dive in. I'm going to try and share some, keep hitting the wrong button. I'm going to try and share stories and also facts and talk about the role of faith communities in immigration advocacy. The role of faith, don't look. Spoilers. In the end, we're all free. The role of faith, some concepts and terminology, and then local context, network, resources. This is also, this is going to be one of those situations where the sequel is going to be better than the original, because next weekend we're having a second presentation, which will be even better, where we're going to have a lot of the community organizations that are advocating and sort of on the ground, in addition to Mariposa, speaking and offering opportunities to get involved. There's a range of involvement from sort of an hour a week from your home office to 70 hours a week patrolling the streets, sort of. So you figure out where you fit best in that, and we'll be offering that next weekend. But today we want to just sort of set the groundwork and get people up to speed on some of the terminology and the concepts. I heard a great discussion on immigration advocacy work, and somebody was saying, I guess I guess I'm explaining these things, and I guess I am sort of preaching to the choir, but he said, I don't feel so much like I'm preaching to the choir as teaching the choir to sing in harmony. So I feel like today we are learning to sing in harmony. It's not, I have making an assumption that most people here generally would like to see justice and people living in dignity in our communities. So I'm not necessarily convincing you of something, but giving ourselves the terminology and the information that we then need to go out into the community to be better advocates, stronger advocates, and kind of ripple out and bring more people into this movement, I think is what we're called to do from this room today. Obviously, if you disagree with me, also raise your hand and let me know, and we'll talk about that. But I'm sort of making an assumption that a lot of folks here are sort of generally interested in justice and immigrant rights. So with that said, a couple more points. I also wanted to say that it's important that we understand concepts and terminology because to the extent that these issues, and immigration law is much more complex, I think, than people give it credit for. It seems really easy. I was talking with friends just now. I think a lot of people tend to have the idea that people come in the right way to this country. They get on a boat in Eastern Europe, with their dark hats and in their bags, and they're from the shtetl or whatever, and they get on a boat or they come to the border and they go to a checkpoint and they sign their name and they show some documents and they maybe get a fingerprint and a picture and they come in the right way. So anybody who comes in the wrong way, like, why would you do that? You're probably up to no good if you came in the wrong way. And so if we can release the concept that the right way is easy to do, you just simply step off the boat or the plane and you present to the officer your documents and it's all very orderly and you just come through. That's not a thing because there's no way for people to lawfully come and immigrate to this country in that way. That's not a thing that can be done. Okay, so that's why people come in irregular ways. Or maybe they do come on one kind of visa, but that's not an immigration. They don't come with the proper documents to stay here for the rest of their lives. They come on a tourist visa or a student visa or some other visa and then stay the rest of their lives. Why didn't they come the right way? Because there is no way to simply be born in another country, raise your hand and say, I'd like to just go to America and make my life there, and there's all those wonderful movies about those and books about that. That's not a thing anymore, hasn't been for at least 60 years in our country. So I think to the extent that we don't understand that, and it's all very complex and strange, it allows the government to do a lot of things in those gray areas because people don't know. And so it's hard for us to hold them accountable to do the right thing because we don't understand what the right thing is and how it works. So that's why I really am so grateful that you're here today to learn a little bit about it. And I'll let you know, we also have these as handout slides, so don't worry about it. Feel free to take notes, but we have slides, so you don't have to read the whole thing right now. But I wanted to just start again and do a quick timeline. I'm not going to hit every point here, but a couple of the ones that I thought were important are that the Constitution happened in 1789. That's an important day. That's what kicked off the whole show. And then in 1864, we passed our first real immigration law that was welcoming workers. We said, come on a boat, jump on a boat, come here and work. We need immigrants. We need workers in this country. And it was really interesting as I was studying about it a little bit. It created this person, a commissioner of immigration, federal commissioner of immigration, that would recruit people. And then there was a superintendent. And when you think about the history, I just love this stuff. 1864, so people would come to New York, and then the superintendent in New York City would get them train tickets to go. So you think about even for 20 years previous, there wouldn't have been trains. But by 1864, there was the railroad. Being a Stanford person, every time I hear about the National Railroad, I'm like, oh, Transcontinental Railroad, oh, it's kind of my thing. Thank God Leland Stanford. I know he killed a bunch of people. He did. But because that railroad existed then, we could then say, let's bring laborers in, and then we can give them tickets to across the continent by 1864. Really interesting. So that happened. But then after that, we were like, oh no, that was a mistake. Let's like not let the Asian people come in. And then, ooh, the Southern and the Eastern Europeans, that was probably a bad plan too. We don't want them to feel too welcome either. And then we moved along. And currently what we're living with was the 1952 Immigration and Nationality Act, which was then, am I wrong? Oh, maybe I'm wrong. I'm sorry. Maybe that was written in 1965. Lyndon Johnson, signed into law the Immigration and Nationality Act, and that got rid of quotas, which we'd had for decades, and said we're going to let people immigrate. And when I use the word immigrate, capital I, immigrate, I mean people who come here to live and work the rest of their lives, like live here. Not lowercase immigrant, which is like somebody from another country who comes here for a little bit of time and leaves. That's not an immigrant. An immigrant is somebody who comes here to stay forever and maybe even become a citizen. And so LBJ, Democratic Congress, Democratic President, made a law that said that we're going to prioritize people who are relatives of people who are already here or are going to be employed by companies that are already existing. So you can start to sort of see the shape of what's to come. And then in 1986, which I'm going to argue is a really important moment, we passed the amnesty, and that's really important in our area. That's how a lot of people in Ventura County got their papers. But if you think about it, in 1986, when we passed the IRCA, which was an amnesty, and just said if you've been here 5 years or more, or if you'd worked at least 180 days in agriculture, you could get a green card, permanent residency, and then from permanent residency, citizenship. And that kind of cleared the decks of a lot of unauthorized workers at the time. But if you think about it, that means that there were a lot of unauthorized workers at the time, which means that when we get to 1986, the system is already broken. Because we already have a lot of people here, specifically here, like actually here in Ventura County. We had a lot of people in the United States, and specifically Ventura County, who were already here doing good work, productive, being part of the community, but couldn't get good status. So we didn't fix how we are bringing people in. We didn't fix the system of how people can apply or how they can get here. We just sort of were like, amnesty. And then we said, yeah, we're going to amnesty everybody who's here today. And then like, I don't know what's going to happen. Everybody who comes like after that, like, And so that's where we are now. We're after that. And nothing's happened since. The laws have become increasingly punitive and punishing and criminalizing since then. So that's where we are. In the amnesty, we saw growers and other employers speak up. They were able to do that because at the time, employing people without work authorization, there was no such thing as work authorization. People just work. And it was sort of frowned upon, if anybody remembers, like before 1987, if you remember what it was like people would work, and it was sort of like, oh, you have a bunch of like undocumented workers. That's maybe not the term people used, but you know. But you have a bunch of people who are not authorized to be in the United States here. That's not great, but it wasn't a crime. The 1986 law made it a felony, a federal felony, to employ people without work permits. So now to ask current employers to step up and advocate for change in the construction industry, in the accommodations industry, right, hospitality, in the healthcare or home care industry, in the agricultural industry, to ask those employers to step up and say, hey, we need immigration reform. You're asking those people to say that they are committing a felony, to admit. So just think about that, and let's think about how we can help them do that. That's a civil disobedience on their part, and how the rest of us who maybe are not employing people can speak up for them and can get them to support us when we do speak up for their interests, which sometimes they don't appreciate, which is weird. So let's talk about what these terms mean. So being undocumented, which is the term that we use, you'll hear people say illegal alien. I don't like that term. Of course, our federal government is back to that because it's fun. It's a troll, so they use that term, but I don't. So being undocumented means that you're not allowed to, you're not able to be employed lawfully. You can leave. You can always leave the country, but you can't come back because you don't have a visa, and you're not going to get a visa because you were here without papers. So like that's no. You don't have the right to be here at all, which means that if immigration enforcement finds you, just on that basis alone, you can be deported or put into immigration proceedings, right? Simply because you're here without status. That's what it means. And then you're subject to all criminal laws, state and federal taxes. So that's also a really important point. It means that you can be arrested for a crime. So you'll also hear like all these people, these criminal aliens, all these people are here and they're committing all these crimes. Yeah, so anybody who commits a crime is subject to local and state law enforcement, like our Oxnard Police, Simi Police, Ventura County Sheriff, right? The state, the CHP. If somebody is committing some sort of crime, so I like to use crazy examples. So if somebody was like found standing over a bloody body with a knife dripping with blood, and law enforcement was like, hey, did you kill that guy? And I was like, yes. And they're like, are you a citizen? And I say, no, I'm undocumented. Are they going to say, oh, well, very well then, carry on, right? That is not what happens. If you are caught in the midst of a crime, or if you are accused of committing a crime, you will be brought to criminal justice. So just because people are here without papers, even in a sanctuary state, which I dispute, California is not, but even if we were a sanctuary state, it doesn't mean that people are not held accountable for committing crimes. So please, let's be clear about that. People who are here without status are still subject to criminal law. They still pay federal taxes, which of course our administration is now trying to share information across, so it's getting riskier and riskier for people to do that. But people nevertheless are doing that. In fact, over the summer, we were seeing people, ICE was repeatedly and continues to be at our courthouse on Victoria Avenue, in Ventura, right? ICE is showing up to that building just about every day. ICE is there. And that's really scary for a lot of people who are undocumented, or even people who are citizens but have an undocumented spouse or an undocumented parent. It makes them very anxious when they see ICE. And yet they continue to come and pay their tickets at the window. If they have a speeding ticket or a parking ticket, there's that window there where you can pay your traffic violations. People are showing up. So this idea that people who are undocumented don't want to comply with our laws, if you take a moment to just think about the bravery it takes to show up to pay, $150 moving violation, and they're showing up to do that. People are showing up to pay their federal taxes. They're trying to prepare their taxes. They're paying to have their taxes prepared, often without knowing that if you earn under a certain amount, you don't have to pay to have your taxes prepared. People are paying money to people who steal that money from them to prepare those taxes so that they can stay right with the law. So that's another misconception, that's another diversion that we're being fed that we need to make sure we understand. And then the final thing is, when you're undocumented, you're not entitled to any federal benefits. That means people who are undocumented often will work in this country with fake documents. Because since the IRCA, you have to prove that you're work authorized, and so people prove that they're work authorized, okay? Which means that there is a social security number that they give, okay? Roll with me here. That is a thing. That's what people do. I know, it's scary, but they do. And that means that when they are paid, their employers are doing their best to comply with the law. The employer has been provided with a name and a social security number, and so they withhold FICA. They withhold Medicare and Social Security from those pay stubs. They do. Vast majority of undocumented people are paid in proper fashion, because it is federal and state law to give people a pay stub and withhold taxes, right? And when you're undocumented, you will never get to claim Social Security or Medicare benefits, ever. Only green card people and citizens can claim Medicare and Social Security benefits back. So people are paying into these systems, but they're never going to get the benefits back unless they can get a green card. And even then, when they get a green card, they only get credit for the years that they worked once they had the green card, not for all the years they were undocumented. They also, going back to DACA, DACA is not a green card, DACA is not citizenship. Those people are not eligible for federal financial aid, the free application for federal student aid, FAFSA. Undocumented students, including DACA, do not qualify for FAFSA. They cannot file a FAFSA. So they don't get Pell grants, they don't get federal grants, okay? Here are some statistics. In California, we have a lot of immigrants. Immigrant meaning person born in another country. Just 27% of our population is foreign born. And so immigrant means lawful and unlawful. 2.7 of those 10.6 are undocumented. They are out of status. Specifically Ventura County, and I get these numbers from the Migration Policy Institute, 76% of people in Ventura County who are undocumented have been here 10 years or more. And that's important because as I travel our county, I'm getting a lot of feedback from people talking about Biden's open borders and the Biden's open borders and the Biden open border. 10 years ago, what was that? What was 10 years ago? Quick. What year was 10 years ago? 2015. Who was president? Obama was still president, right? When did Biden become president? 2021, right? So 10 years ago, do the math. It has nothing to do with Biden's open borders, for God's sakes. And of course, Obama is also known as the deporter-in-chief. Like, okay, nobody was saying Obama had a wantonly open border. Okay, people have lived here 10 years or more, and an additional, I think it's, well, I'm not going to say it, but there is a substantial number who are here 15 years or more. Okay, so people have been here in our county a very long time. They're raising their children here, their grandchildren. A lot of my clients, in fact, we did a tally recently of all of our clients who are in deportation proceedings right now. Every single one of my clients in deportation has grown U.S. citizen children born here, and they have grown, actually every single one of my clients has U.S. citizen grandchildren. Okay, so these are not like recent arrivals who are, these are people who have lived here. They are part of our community. They're here. They live here all the time. They have given their entire lives and their entire families to this country. Many of our clients have children in the military, right? 40% live with at least one citizen child. This means child under 18, like actual child. So that we don't have the number on how many have U.S. citizen offspring who may be over 18, but just 40% have a small child, a young child. 39% are at or above federal poverty. I just include that like it's not 200% of federal poverty, especially in Ventura County, that's still pretty broke, but but it's not necessarily that everybody who's undocumented is totally living in a very meager environment. A lot of folks are people of substance. A lot of folks own homes, have cars, have businesses. And then the top four top four industries are agriculture, accommodations, hospitality, restaurants, manufacturing, and construction. Okay. We're not going to spend too much time on this slide, but I just wanted to give you, again, this terminology. So a citizen is a person who has full rights in the United States. They can vote, serve on a jury, work for the TSA. I know that's like everybody's aspiration. What else? Federal aid, Social Security, travel on a U.S. passport, full citizens, right? If you're born a citizen, you can run for president. If you are not born a citizen, you can't run for president, but you can still run for Congress and Senate, governor, think of the governator, right? The state assembly, local city council, whatever. So that's a citizen. Citizens cannot be removed from the country. They're not subject to deportation. Trump is trying to do that. He's trying to shake it all up. Obviously, he's trying to shake it all up. But it's widely understood, and in most countries throughout most of history, when people are considered citizens of a nation, it's sort of like that's their home, that's where they're from. So you can't not have them be not there. Right under citizen in terms of rights is a lawful permanent resident. That's a person who has a green card. That's the same thing. Immigrant, lawful resident, green card holder, same word, same person. So those folks have the ability to travel internationally at will, but they travel on their home country, on their country of origin passport. They're not U.S. citizens, but they get to live here permanent. Permanent means they get to live here the rest of their lives. No questions asked, lawfully. And they primarily live here. They don't live in another country. And they can, as we talked about, they can get Social Security, Medicare benefits. Asylees, refugees, those are different than green card people. These are folks that are here under the protection of the United States because their country is not a safe place for them, and their country's government has not protected them. People who get asylee or refugee status can apply for a green card and then become citizens, but that is a separate category. DACA, separate category. This is Obama's program that he started in 2012, which in total was going to maybe affect 1 million people. The important thing to know about DACA is everybody's like, oh, kids. Yeah, no. To qualify for DACA, you have to show that you came to the United States before you were 16 years old, and you have to show you've been here consistently since June of 07. The very youngest DACA person in the world would be 18 years old now. Okay? It's not a thing. People can't apply for DACA. I saw a recent news article about somebody who came to the United States with DACA. No, nobody come to DACA. Nobody come here with DACA. You come here, you are here, and on June of 2012, you were here out of status. Note, there are a lot of people who were here in status in June of 2012 and fell out. Those people don't get DACA either because you had to be undocumented in June of 2012. And in June of 2012, you had to have already lived here 5 years. So that's where we get June of 07. So the youngest possible person with DACA, somebody who could apply for DACA, was born in 07. Also, on June of 2012, you had to be under 31 years old. So the oldest possible person with DACA is born in June of 1981, so they're 44 years old. So DACA is a generation. It's kind of the millennial. Is that what we call it? Yeah, the millennials. 1981 to 2007 generation. And so they're moving through time. So those DACA people are getting older and older, and they're keeping their DACA or whatever, but no new people can get in. Largely because Trump ended the program in September of 2017, saying no new people can get in. And with a brief hiatus in the early part of 2021, no new people have been permitted to apply for DACA since September of 2017. But also, even if Trump had never existed, DACA would still shut out anybody who came to this country after 08. And we know a lot of those people. There are a lot of kids who have come here. You know, again, before the age of 16, a lot of people have come here in the intervening 17 years. And those folks just like, they're just not eligible. They're never going to get DACA. They're just here undocumented. So we have families that have like one parent is a citizen, one parent is undocumented, one kid is too old for DACA, the second kid got DACA, the third kid maybe is a citizen, and then maybe there was a fourth kid that was born out of the country and came in, and now they don't have DACA. So you have these mixed status families. That's what that term is. And then finally we talk about undocumented people. And those are people, as we said, no status, no papers. So here's another representation, same concepts, but just a quick chart to kind of compare and contrast and to really put the lie to some of the mythology that we hear about immigration all the time, about how all these people are getting all these benefits and it's just so easy to be undocumented and everybody just like, oh, it's their greatest aspiration to be undocumented in the United States. They just think it's fabulous. Nobody thinks it's fabulous. Nobody likes it. Yeah, well, yes, and we have this on a handout, or you can take a picture. So how do people come in legally? There's a million different ways that they can apply, but each kind of way is going to regulate how long you can stay, whether or not you can work, whether or not you can go to school, and whether or not your family can accompany you. But the only way to stay here forever and ever and ever is a green card. And the only way to get the green card is to watch John Oliver's television show from 6 years ago. It's still pretty accurate. And what he explains in 19 very witty minutes, is the only way to get a green card is through family, through employment, through good luck and bad luck. Bad luck is asylum, essentially, or being the victim of a crime. Good luck is the diversity lottery. and that's for countries that send us very, very few people every year. So pretty much none of Latin America can do the diversity lottery. Employment means an employer has filed an employment-based green card for you, and those files, those applications usually take 2 to 10 years to process. So if you imagine being an employer and filing for your employee, and then you just wait 10 years for your employee to get their green card and come on over. So I mean, I hire people. I hired somebody the other day, and she was like, well, when should I start? And I was like, well, we're good tomorrow, right? Like, can you come? So she started the next day. I've never waited 10 years for an employee to start working at my office. That I don't know what that would look like. And then family. These are supposed to be jokes, you guys. Roll with me. I know it's hot. Come on, you guys. Okay, and then, I mean, they're not jokes. I mean, it's true. I'm not lying. I'm just saying, dude, who waits 10 years for an employee, right? That's crazy. And then family is even more fun. Family is usually, there are some family members that can come right now. It's taking 2 years is the fastest for paperwork to just crank through the system. But for the majority of family members, it's an 8 to 25 year wait or longer. And I'll show you why. Oh, this is a fun graphic. This is always fun. I've been using this since 2009. Yes. Isn't it true that the green card holders have to go back and come back in again and again? No. Oh, green card holders have to renew their card every 10 years, but that's not their status that expires, it's just the card. And I usually explain that as it's like your ATM card has an expiration date on it. That doesn't mean that on that date your bank takes all your money away from you. It just means the little card expires because they want to update the safety stuff on the card. So the card will expire, but not your status because you are a permanent resident. Yeah. If you leave the country on a green card, you have to prove you've paid your taxes. Well, sort of. They don't usually ask for that at the airport. When you are a permanent resident, you really shouldn't be outside the United States more than 6 months at a time. Yeah, but I mean, on a case by case, I would advise each of my clients differently. Yeah, you don't have to show your taxes in specific. You have to not be out of the country a lot because you're a permanent resident, so you should be here all the time. So if you have your green card and you go back to your home country or you go any country and you're there for 9 months, I mean, let's say you're there for 5 months and then you come back for a week and then you go back and you're out of the country another 4 months and you come back for a week and you go out for another 4 or 5 months. If you keep doing that, they're like, wait, what's going on? Because you're supposed to live here. And if you don't file your taxes and you don't renew your driver's license and you don't actually have a lease, you let the lease slide on your apartment, at a certain point they're going to say, are you still living here? And they'll pull the green card. But if you have a green card and you travel out of the country for 2 weeks or a month-long vacation, ordinarily you don't have to do your taxes. That's unusual. You wouldn't have to do that. We can talk about that offline. But yeah, the best way is to be a U.S. citizen. Once you're a U.S. citizen, you can come and go out of the United States at will. And a lot of U.S. citizens in my family just move to other countries and just live there for the rest of their lives and never come back here because they don't like it. And they are still U.S. citizens. They still have to file their taxes. So why it takes so long? It takes so long. This is the family. This is called the visa bulletin. And this is what shows how long it takes. So this is, September. So this is September. This is the current one. So these are the different family categories. So F1 is somebody over 21 who's unmarried, and their parent is a U.S. citizen. So their parent applied for them. So if you are born in another country and your parent is a U.S. citizen, and you are unmarried but older than 21 years old, if you're from India, it's a 9-year wait because it shows that if your parent filed in July of 2016, I think. Does that look like a 60? Yeah. 2016. But if you're from Mexico, it's like a 19-year wait because your parent would have had to file it in 06, right? Do you see how it works? And then these are green card family members. This is a green card, the spouse of a green card, or the minor, under 21, children of green card people. These are the adult children who are unmarried. of green card people, again, Mexico. These are the married children of U.S. citizens. That's a bad place to be. If you're a Mexican, don't get married, right? And then if you're the sibling, the sister or brother of a U.S. citizen born in another country. So these are the countries that send so many people: China, India, Mexico, Philippines. And then every other country is here. So you can kind of see these delays. And so when people like go back and do it the right way, just like do it like my family did, we got on a boat in southern Italy and then came to the New York harbor and like gave them our name and number and like they green carded us. Why is that so hard for you? Because first of all, your family that came over from Italy, they had like some fourth cousin that was like, you should come and live in southern Manhattan. And you didn't have to show that you had a family member. That guy, like maybe he would write a letter saying that he would house you or something, but like it was real loosey-goosey. Now you would have to have a family person. Your fourth cousin can't apply for you. It would have to be your parent, your green card, your U.S. citizen parent, your green card parent or spouse, your citizen sibling. No cousins, no aunts, no, right? No godparents, right? Only those people can file for you. They file for you today. You wait your time, 10, 15, 20 years. Then you get on your boat and come into the country, right? That's why people don't wait. Also, as a U.S. citizen taxpayer, you might not want people to wait because, just to be crass, do you really want a bunch of 40 and 50, 40, 50, 60-year-old people coming to your country? Not really. Like, what? We want 20-year-old people coming to our country. They're going to build lives here. They're going to be much more economically productive than people in the later stages of their life. I don't need to bring everybody's grandma over here for her sunset years. I want to bring people who are going to come here, build businesses, work in our factories, contribute to our culture and our community, and raise their children and be productive members of our country. That's what serves our country, is to bring young, vibrant people, not to wait for 30 years to bring, finally your sister comes and, maybe she brings a couple teenagers maybe. Question? Only U.S. citizen children can sponsor the parents. Those are not in this. That's the 2-year thing. So U.S. citizens can file for their own parents if you're over 21. They can file for their spouse, and they can file for their children who are under 21, and that's immediate. They don't have to wait for a date. That's why they don't show up on this. So yeah, good question. They're not even here because they're immediate. They don't have to wait their turn. That's immediate. Good question. Yeah. There are barriers I hasten to add. When a citizen, so a lot of our people here, I just told you, people have children and grandchildren here who are 21. But the problem is that the 1997 law said that once you've been here in this country more than 1 year out of status, then you can't get legal status until you spend 10 years outside the United States. So people who came here, and this is the bulk of our clients who came, most of our clients are Ventura and Santa Barbara County. They came here in the late 90s or even in the late 80s because they just missed the amnesty. 80s, 90s, early 2000s. The kids are turning 21. Yes. They're U.S. citizens. Yes. We did it. Yes. They paid their taxes, never had a traffic ticket, did all the things, went on the PTA, did all the good things. Now the child wants to file for them. The 22-year-old wants to file for them. And I have to say, you know what? You're not going to get your papers because you've been here these 24 years without status. So even though your child is a U.S. citizen and wants to file for you, you're going to have to leave for 10 years. So my advice to you is to leave today and then have your child call me in 2035, and then we'll start your process. And you'll get in lickety-split because you're the parent of a U.S. citizen. So lickety-split. But you have to do your 10 years out the country. Yeah, Barbara. Oh yeah, so Trump's thing, thanks Barbara. So Trump is saying if you leave now and pay a $1,000 fine, then you're good and then you can come right back. So that's not true because first of all, he can't change the law, and so the law punishing people and saying they have to be out for 10 years remains. So that's done. Okay. So if you take that deal and leave now, what they're actually saying is, if you leave now, you can leave now paying $1,000. By the way, we don't know where to pay that money. That like regulation hasn't happened yet, so there's like no place to send the money. We've looked, right? We don't know yet, do we? No. Okay. So anyway, but assuming there was actually an account to which we could mail that check, what he's saying is then you would avoid the additional penalty of being deported. So, like I said earlier, you can leave anytime. It's like the opposite of Hotel California. You can check out anytime. You can leave, but you can't come back. So if you take that deal, anybody who leaves the country right now, and let me address also this other vocabulary, the self-deport, that's not a thing. It's like you self-fine. You don't self-fine yourself. A judge fines you. You don't like, oh, here, Jim, I owe you $500. I'm going to self-fine and give you No, Jim could take me to court. Don't do that. But he could take me to court and say that I owe him $500, and a judge can be like, yes, 500 due to Jim Moynihan, right? And then I would owe a fine. Same with deportation. Deportation is something that only a judge can order. So you don't self-deport. You just leave. I didn't deport myself from Ventura when I came here. I just left. And now I'm going to leave Camarillo and go back to Ventura. Later this week, I'll leave Ventura and go to Oxnard. I'm not deporting myself. I'm just leaving. I'm just moving through the world across these artificial man-made boundaries. So if you leave the United States under these terms, you would avoid being deported because you won't get caught for being here undocumented because you're gone. And so that's what they're offering. Leave now. But I'm saying you could also just leave. Why would you leave and pay $1,000? Thanks? No thanks? Like it's... all of these things are designed to inspire fear, to inspire chaos, to inspire confusion, to muddy the waters and make it really difficult. The important thing to know is that law in 1996, we go back to our timeline, the law in 1996 is what's really powerful right now, and it has been, which says, it was 1996 law that said that once you've been here out of status 1 year, just being here out of status, we're not talking about committing crimes or getting deported or none of that, just you came on a tourist visa, it lapsed and you just stayed. You came on a temporary work visa, it lapsed and you just stayed. Anytime ever you ever want to get papers, first you got to go out for 10 years, first. Okay, and that law happened in 1996. President Bill Clinton, Newt Gingrich's Congress, you figure it out. That's how it happened, and that's where we are to this day. So any rules that Trump is making up, trying to get people to leave, they are always going to face that problem of just the bare fact of having been here without papers. When they leave, they've got a 10-year bar to deal with. On top of that, if they get deported by a judge, ordered deported and put on a bus or a plane out, that's an additional penalty. That's an additional problem they will have to confront after they do their 10 years out. First 10 years, then deal with the fact that you were also deported. Thanks, Barb. Requirements for citizenship, I just think it's really fun. We do an event every month that that Clue has sponsored for 8 years to do the Swap Meet Justice at Oxnard College. We help people apply for citizenship, and more urgently than ever, we want everybody who's eligible to apply for citizenship to do that. There's a lot of rockiness with that, trying to sow confusion. Who's a citizen? Birthright citizenship, all these things. Anyway, let's just keep trucking. Let's keep trucking. Let's keep getting people citizenship. Let's keep doing that, because if people are citizens, then they can vote. And if it wasn't valuable, if it wasn't scary to have a bunch of U.S. citizens voting, they wouldn't be working so hard to make it so that we couldn't vote. They wouldn't be working so hard to make it so that we aren't citizens. They wouldn't make it so hard for people who are not citizens to be counted in the census. That shows how important these things are. Because if they weren't important, the Trump administration wouldn't be trying to end all of those things, which they are. I see immigration law as a fight for the rule of law. We need to understand, as we advocate, and this kind of leads into next week, as we advocate for immigrant rights, there are maybe things that our state can do of California. We've seen our governor and our attorney general try to speak up for the people of our state. There are things that our sheriff can do, that our board of supervisors can do, our city council, especially in Camarillo. I really want to call on you guys for the city council of Camarillo to push the Camarillo City Council to do what's right and protect all of their residents. It's disappointing that they haven't seen fit to do that yet. Keep pushing them. So there are things that we can do, but we need to understand that immigration is federal, and it's real hard to see how it wouldn't be. It's pretty weird to think that people would have permanent resident in one state, but in another state they would be undocumented, and Texas would say they're citizens, but Oklahoma says they're undocumented. That's a mess. It's one country, and so one citizenship. So citizenship, immigration enforcement is federal, and federal law enforcement is always going to override state law enforcement. So we do need to be aware of that when we're pushing our sheriff or our local police chief to do things. There are things they can do, but when they are like, dude, that's federal, sometimes they're right. I know. It's hard. But sometimes even law enforcement is right? So we are seeing a lot of that in our community, and we're all kind of getting a crash course in federal supremacy law. But yes, immigration law does, and federal law enforcement overrides state or local. But that doesn't mean we can't do things to help ourselves and protect ourselves. We have rights, but only if we assert them. You don't just have rights. You have to assert your rights. You have to get out there and vote. You have to get out there and speak. You have to get out there and demand your city council give money to people who are being impacted. You have to demand that all facilities post information about what areas are private, public, push local housing agency, local housing developments to fence the area and help support their residents to protect themselves against ICE or any other uninvited visitor. Protected area. A lot of people are like, oh, well, we're in church, they can't come in here. Nope, not anymore. We're not doing that anymore. That was Trump 1.0. Trump 2.0, there's no protected areas. Nothing's off limits. Churches, clinics, birthing centers, right? All fair game. So we need to be vigilant. Schools, child care centers. Everything is fair game under this administration, and they are being pushed to detain and deport as many people as possible, both for the optics of it, to be seen to be doing something, but also because, of course, federal immigration detention facilities are subcontracted out to private companies that are traded on the New York Stock Exchange, Core, Civic, and Geo Group. Ask Barbara Layton for more information on this. She is a minor expert on this. I'll just put you on the spot. But there are a lot of people in CLU that have been working on, and Reverend Betty is around here. Yes. There are a lot of people that have been working on issues of detention centers, and remember that our detention centers, they are seeking profits so that they can report to their shareholders that they're making profit. How do they show profit? They show contracts with the government. How do they get contracts? By making the case that we need to detain more people. Okay, so that is how this is working. So keep an eye on that. So we want to detain, they're going to try and detain as many people as they can. And just spin it however they have to. I brought red cards. They're here, and you can see those at your leisure. And then here's the warrants conversation. Does anybody want to see the warrants? Let's move through this. And then faith communities. Get out there, people. We have, CAUSE has been an integral part of building the immigration advocacy on the Central Coast these many years. Just to compare 2017 to 2015, there was no nonprofit immigration service provider, and now there are 5. There was a small rapid response network. We now have the rapid responses in 3 counties, and we have 1,000 volunteers or more involved, and we have 35,000 people involved in that rapid response alert system throughout the 3 counties. We were doing DACA and citizenship sort of caravans, kind of pop-up clinics. Now we've got Swap Meet Justice every month, last Sunday of the month at the Swap Meet. There's this sort of loose network of immigration lawyers and immigration kind of lawyers, sort of, people who care, sort of. Now we've got immigration warriors, which is across all 3 counties, immigration attorneys and accredited reps. So we've got a lot of stuff that has been built through the hard work of all kinds of people. We're looking for the faith community to step up and represent. We need callers, but we also need congregations, people of good faith to come out and participate. Here's some of the nonprofit organizations. Mariposa is mine. I'll just promote. But these are the other ones that are older. But that doesn't make them better. They're just older. And here's some other things. So this, when I talk about this is Swap Meet Justice, and then when I talk about the Rapid Response Network, I'm referring to this, and you can use this, a real QR code, and you can join the Rapid Response Network. If you see something, say something, post a picture, say, I'm seeing ICE at the corner of this and that. That is totally lawful to do. They're out in public. They are public servants. So you can take a picture and say, I saw them on the corner of, Las Posas and whatever, and send that to the Rapid Response, and then we'll get the word out to people so that people can protect themselves. And that's what that is. That's what the Rapid Response Network does. So with that, I will take questions. Thank you very much. Question for the video people.
Tell me what happened at Swap Meet Justice versus this very long process that you've been describing.
What happens at Swap Meet Justice? Yeah, Swap Meet Justice. Thank you. I could have done a plan. That was a great question. So my picture of immigration legal services, as I said, the immigration system is extremely and increasingly complex. Not just the laws itself, but then these weird, like, are they or aren't they, or there's this thing, or should I do this thing, or I should register, or I should pay $1,000. Like, what is all of this? So it's really complicated and increasingly complicated and murky, I think on purpose. So that being said, there are only so many seasoned immigration attorneys who are working. There are a few more due to the work of advocates. There are a few more accredited representatives and newer attorneys, and then there are a ton of volunteers, right? And the amount of training time you require to become a volunteer versus becoming an expert immigration attorney, right? So I see it like a pyramid. And so Swap Meet Justice is that initial row of the pyramid. Can we just do the most straightforward cases, the easiest cases, what lawyers would call limited scope cases, and just clear the decks and get those people? They do not need to have a very expensive attorney focusing their time on their citizenship application. If they are a green card holder at least 5 years, they've never traveled out of the United States or very, very infrequently. They don't have a criminal record. They have no immigration history besides the acquisition of their green card, and they've been paying their taxes. We can train high school students to fill out the application and do their citizenship under the supervision of an attorney. And they don't have to come to my office and spend thousands of dollars. But people who have cases that take a little bit more time, are a little bit more complex, they can go to those nonprofit agencies that can, they have an office and a table and files, and they can meet with them over time because their case might take 3 or 4 years to resolve. And so you want to have a regular person taking care of you. And then the cases that are most complex can go to the attorneys. And so if we can kind of help people find where they are in that system so that we are using the right resources in the right way, because we just are limited. And so Swap Meet Justice is trying to do just the most simple, straightforward citizenship applications, renewing the green card, not getting the green card because that's tough, but renewing that green card every 10 years, pretty straightforward for the most part. And then renewing DACA, again, pretty straightforward. If they have a problem, they get screened by a lawyer first, and if the lawyer's like, oh, wait, what did you say? You've been arrested 10 times? Okay, let me refer you out. But if somebody says, yeah, I've been renewing my DACA for the past 12 years without a problem, I've never been arrested, I haven't left the country, I'm here, I'm just working, yeah, we can have a group of volunteers such as yourselves fill out the paperwork and do it. Thanks, for free. Yeah.
During the first Trump administration, children were separated from their parents. Have you been involved in reuniting children with their parents?
Children being separated from their parents?
Yeah.
Yes. That continues to happen. So that was also, to clarify that situation, the Trump administration said when people present themselves at the border, we're going to say that's a federal offense. And so we're going to detain people in federal prison. And there are rules about putting children in federal prison. So we're going to take adults to federal prison and the kids will go elsewhere. So that's why children were separated, because we don't allow children to go to federal prison. So the Trump administration was like, we don't have to separate them. We could send the kids to federal prison, right? Right, so they were setting it up that way. So that continues to happen. That being said, right now, our country's both economy and treatment of immigrants have sort of combined. So not so many people are presenting themselves at the border at all to be separated or not separated. So that's not happening as much. But certainly, yeah, people are getting separated. And then, of course, in our community, just down the street at the Glass House, there were a bunch of people. This morning, I was talking with a friend of mine, a colleague who was working with the family of the woman who has an 8-month-old, or I guess a 9-month-old at this point, baby. And she went to work at the Glass House that day and got detained, got snatched. And the people that take care of the baby during the day were like, where'd she go? And they didn't know where she went. She didn't come up to pick up the baby. And they couldn't find her for several days. And so these people held on to a 9-month-old for 2 or 3 days, and they didn't know how long they were going to have that baby for. So that's also separation. So when we look at these people getting snatched off the streets, that is separating parents from their children. And so, in fact, yes, that is continuing to happen.
So yeah. Vanessa, going back to attorneys, can you hear me? Going back to attorneys, you're an honest attorney, you're legitimate, but there are attorneys out there who have taken advantage of undocumented people. How do you help them tell the difference?
How do we help people cope with having a bad lawyer?
Well, they've been taken advantage of financially.
Getting taken advantage of. Yeah, I mean, that's another reason we have Swap Meet Justice, is that we're out there for free. We bring a bunch of, that's the other slide. We bring all of these agencies out there once a month so people can see, like, maybe you want to work with Fernando, or maybe you like Giovanni, he's kind of more your vibe, right? Or maybe you just feel much more comfortable with, like, Maria, right? I don't know. Like, it's okay. We don't take it personally. There are lots of resources out there that can help you free or very low cost, but people don't often know. The other problem we're having with Swap Meet Justice is it is at Oxnard College, which is fantastic. That's South Oxnard. And people from Camarillo, I really feel for people, Fillmore, Moore Park, Santa Paula, very difficult for them to get to South Oxnard. In fact, it's like asking people to go to the other side of the world. Like, they're like, wow, South Oxnard. I was in Conejo. I went to Chalice in Conejo once in 2018 to advertise. So they were doing a food share event, and I was like, you guys should come to Oxnard College. And they're like, where's Oxnard College? And I was like, oh, it's in Oxnard. And they were like, oh, is that close to Santa Barbara? And I was like, Oxnard. We're in Newberry. It's in Oxnard. Do you not know where Oxnard is? And they're like, it's like north, right? And I was like, well, I mean, yeah, but like not that far north, right? So it's really challenging for people to get around the county. But that, I mean, and we worked with the district attorney, Eric Nazarenko's office, starting in 2017 when he got, I think he was also elected in 2016 for the first time. And so we were working with him to go after unlicensed practitioners of law, notary fraud, right? And he is up for it. He's committed to that work. We're looking for people who've been victimized, which is often very difficult. It's actually like a career. It's like a second job to be a crime victim. So a lot of times people don't want to pursue that case, but we like them to. And then when it comes to somebody who's an actual licensed attorney who has defrauded people, it's really hard. It's really hard. Each immigration attorney in the county, we know who those people are. And when people say, oh, this is my attorney, we just sort of like, we haven't kind of found a way. There are people who are egregious and they take the money and go to Vegas, but there are people who just consistently make mistakes. And it's really difficult. So we just try to get the good word out and try to elevate the good work that there are many great attorneys, and those are the people that are involved with Immigration Warriors, and we just try to elevate our practice and be as good as we can and get the word out that we're out there.
Okay, I'm awful. I'll do one more and then I'll give it up. My understanding is that raid on the Glass House, many people were taken, they were disappeared, and many of those people were citizens of the United States and legitimate green card holders. What did you do to help them?
Oh, people who are citizens or green card holders who get detained, citizens should be released right away. Green card holders, it depends, because sometimes somebody can hold a green card. They were issued the green card in 2014. Maybe they renewed it in 2020. Well, let's say they were issued the green card in 2007. They renewed it in 2017, no problem. And then in 2019, they committed a felony and they were convicted of some sort of felony. They have the green card in their wallet. It's good. But the minute somebody runs their prints, when they go to renew their green card, when they go to apply for citizenship, when they leave the United States to come back, or when they get detained at Glass House, and somebody runs the prints, they'll see that conviction. And so that can create a problem. So we, again, with the Immigration Warriors, I don't know, with the attorneys throughout the 3 counties, we very quickly got organized and are ensuring that every person who got snatched at Glass House is getting a chance to speak to an attorney and is getting the representation that they need. So just depending on what is happening for that person, maybe they just get out, but maybe they don't. And then, of course, we're seeing all kinds of hanky-panky, because we are seeing people who are U.S. citizens being taken. We're seeing people who are U.S. citizens having ICE say, we don't believe these are real documents. I had a client in my office last week who is a U.S. citizen and was stopped by ICE, and they had their wife come and bring their birth certificate and their passport, and they're like, these are fake. And my client was like, they're not fake. So we're in that world now. And based on nothing whatsoever, my client was being told that his documents were fake and were not going to be validated, and so they were going to keep detaining him. So we fight. Those are the moments, some of those cases, that's where faith communities can be really powerful, because to the extent that people think they can do this stuff in the shadows, they can do this stuff and nobody knows. They are empowered to do it. But when people show up, and we've had people, I'm looking at the people in this room who showed up at the ICE office at 321 Cortez Circle, right down the street, and showed up for folks that were being stopped and should not have been deported. And people show up and say, we're watching you, we're aware, we're going to report, we're going to speak from the pulpit, we're going to talk with our committee, our reading group, our knitting, knitters, or, we're going to spread this story, and people are going to know that this is happening. And so that's where communities of faith can be so important, is bearing witness and spreading the word. Okay.
Their children.
Yeah, what can undocumented parents do? That's next week. Come and find out.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you for being here.
Thank
it's
you.
very, very helpful.
Thanks so much.
Can you cover SB 54 and what leverage does ICE have on the Ventura County Sheriff's Office in terms of leverage them to help ICE, and what can we do in terms of talking to our city council about the contracted police and public service safety services that the Ventura County Sheriff provides? Because I expect that we have a contractual agreement that has some deliverables, and we should be talking either to our council representatives as well as the sheriff's office about what we expect in public safety.
Yeah, that's a great question, and a lot of that should be addressed next week. Make sure it gets addressed next week. A lot of that will be addressed next week. So SB 54 is called the sanctuary state. It's not, sanctuary really means, sanctuary means protection from law enforcement completely. Like somebody runs into the church and we, let them live over here. And no matter what they've done, no questions asked, they're here and nobody can touch them. So when we say California is a sanctuary state or X city is a sanctuary city, that's not true, because if people commit crimes, they're still going to go to California, Department of Corrections. So relax. But SB 54 endeavored to end the rapid communication and the sometimes behind the scenes quick communication between local law enforcement and ICE and immigration enforcement. And what SB 54 Act, that's the California Values Act, said was that law enforcement cannot simply turn people over to ICE. They can, in certain cases, there are carve-outs if people have been held to answer or convicted of certain crimes, which tend to be felonies. Then they can be. They can be, but they don't have to be. And if our local law enforcement, which in our county is the sheriff, because the sheriff in our county is the only one that has a jail. So in other counties around the state, there are other, like LAPD runs a jail in addition to LA County Sheriff, right? So both of those guys have to, and they are guys, right? Both of them have to speak up. But in our county, it really is only the sheriff, which is why everything kind of gets over to him. So Sheriff Jim Fryhoff is in charge of our jail system in Ventura County, and so he is the the fulcrum where people who are held to answer or convicted of crimes may or may not get referred out to ICE, and he has the choice whether or not to do that. And so a lot of advocates, including myself, have pushed for him to make a choice to not do that at all. When he does it, if he transfers one person in a calendar year to ICE, he has to go before the Board of Supervisors and report who he, not who, but like why he made that transfer and what his statistics are and what his basis for doing that was. So we're trying to make less work for the sheriff. If he didn't transfer anybody, he wouldn't have to go in front of the Board of Supervisors. He gets the day off. Woo, go to the beach. So we're trying to help him. So that's what the California Values Act, and we're having our next Truth Act Forum this year on September 30th, and it was a victory because we got it to be starting at 6 p.m. at the Board of Supervisors, which is the government center on Victoria, at 6 p.m. In the past, it's been at like 8 or 9 or 10 in the morning, making it difficult for working people to show up or students. So this year, we really want to demonstrate like how grateful we are, or how important it is to hold these meetings at a time that people can show up. So please do show up on September 30th. We'll have more information about how you can get trained and prepared to speak at that next Sunday at Mount Cross. Sorry, I just spaced. At Mount Cross next Sunday at 2 p.m. But with respect to local law enforcement, in our county also, some of our smaller cities or some of our cities have made the choice not to have their own police department, but rather to contract for police services from the sheriff. Our cities could also contract with the LA Sheriff or Santa Barbara Sheriff or Oxnard PD or Simi PD. These are just choices. I'm not saying what's practical. I have no idea what the budgets are, But if we are thinking out of the box, there are all kinds of options. And so, yes, to your point, yes, indeed, cities should hold the sheriff's department accountable for the sort of police services that they receive in their city, because you are a customer. And so you should say, I'm a customer and this is what I wanted you to do. This is the contract. And are you meeting those terms? Or do we want to renegotiate our contract? So the cities have an ability to do that if there were political will to do so. I hope that there would be. Thanks. Jim. Tim, sorry. Other question. I'm very curious, having done this work for many years through CLUE. I was on the board for many years. Working with CLUE, I am really encouraged by these three churches coming together. That's a big start, is to have that community. And then, like, what can we do as people of faith to bring that in? I've been very much involved with the Rapid Response Network. I'll show you the QR code again. People are coming out. People are bearing witness. We've partnered with the National Lawyers Guild to do trainings on being a legal observer, which is different than being an activist. A legal observer is a person who's standing to the side with a pen and paper and a camera and simply documenting. Person approached, law enforcement approached, they are not intervening. You want to think of it as being a documentarian, right? Documentarians, they go out into the savannah and they watch the animals chase and kill and eat each other. That's pretty much what we're watching happen. So that's what legal observing is. So we're working with them through the Rapid Response Network. There's a lot of different work going on. There's a marker project that's emerging. If you're interested in art, particularly fabric artists are being called upon to make sort of markers throughout the Tri-County area of somebody was taken here, and doing just a memorial at the locations where people were taken. So there's all sorts of work sort of bubbling up in terms of holding people accountable, telling the story, advocating for change. So I really hope that folks will show up next week at Mount Cross. We'll be bringing all sorts of organizations and people there, and to think about where you personally, where your congregation, where your knitting group, your reading group, your backgammon group, whatever, where they might fit in with this work. It's really the work of building community and showing up. I've been saying that our county is a mixed status county. And so it's not, for a long time, I think people sort of thought, oh, those immigrants over there, it's so sad. But that's really not the case. Everybody knows somebody. Really quickly we find, right, there's a foreign-born person. Every time I do this talk, it comes out like, oh, actually, I'm an immigrant. Like, yeah, I did that, right? They're a foreign-born person. They're everywhere. And they all have their own experience with immigration, and it changes year to year. And just somebody who came here in the 60s is different than the 80s, is different than 2010. But they do have that shared experience, and we have the shared experience of having them come in and enriching our community in a multitude of ways. So please come out and participate and bring a friend next Sunday. Yes?
Tell me if this is a next week question. If I may crudely summarize a lot of what you've said today, the constant changes in law over the last 75 years has made things a mess. What's the beginnings of a compassionate legal change to clean things up?
I don't know. I mean, yeah. The beginning of a compassionate change. Well, I think compassion, empathy, and I guess what I just said, like realizing that we're a mixed status country. Like a lot of us, not everybody is an immigrant. We have people who were here first, you know, and have been immigrated upon, and then we have people who were taken and didn't choose to come here, but now they're here. And then we have a lot of people who did choose. And when we talk about immigration or a lot of these issues, including, you know, we didn't talk about healthcare today or housing or education, ultimately, we all do better when we all do better. And it just seems like, why should I spend money or time or resources worrying about those people who haven't gotten their act together in some way? And the fact is, we're here now and we're all here together. And to the extent that we're cheap and miserly towards others, it cheapens and makes us all miserable. Versus if we just extend a hand and ensure that there is adequate housing and fair wages and good health care, everybody will do better. Everybody will do better. We won't have to worry as much. And if people could, if our country could sort of be realistic, as we have not been, I'm not sure about 1965, but certainly not since 1965, our country has not been realistic about what our labor demands are. You know, there's a lot of writing about NAFTA, which opened the ability for free trade across the three countries, Canada, Mexico, the United States, the US, Mexico, Canada agreement, whatever you want to call that thing. open trade, but did not open the borders to labor. So we could move goods, but we couldn't move humans. Well, that, I mean, that's Econ 101, your first year of college. Like, that's pretty basic. It was going to have that effect. And our immigration laws clearly don't represent the needs of our country because we have all these people working, and people don't tend to pay people to work for them if they don't have to, which means if they are paying people to work for them, they must be doing important things because otherwise they wouldn't be paid, right? It's so obvious. And to approach things, as you said, open-minded, with curiosity, and to say, boy, it looks like this country, like if I landed from Mars, I'd say, wow, this country seems to really like all these people coming from other places. It's so weird that they treat them so weirdly because, like, seems like they really depend on them. Fix that. Vote for that. Vote for that. Don't vote for stupid things.
You mentioned in 1997,
Yes.
the law changed and that people had to leave for 10 years. This seems extremely harsh.
Yes.
And to me, seems like a law that really needs to be changed.
It does. Thank you. So the comment was the 1997 law that says people have to leave for 10 years before they can be legal in the country seems extremely harsh and should be changed. And I mean, yeah. It was motivated by Newt Gingrich's, remember, he came into Congress in 1994. It was the first time Republicans had Congress in a bajillion years. Nobody had ever seen a Republican-controlled Congress before in recorded history. I'm kidding, but in many decades, right? And so they were all fired up. And Clinton was off doing what he was doing with Monica Lewinsky, so he was on the back foot. And the Republican Congress was like, we're sick and tired of these immigrants in this country. We've got to do something. We've got to get rid of these people. We're going to punish them.
Well, we need legal immigrants.
Well, that's what you say. That's not what Newt Gingrich says. And a lot of people voted for that.
We need them for farming. We need them in the hospitality. We need them in many. Yeah, even as doctors and lawyers. My daughter tried to hire someone from India to do AI for a program that she's doing in the university, and she could not find anyone in this country to do it, and then she was not allowed to hire someone from India.
So, yeah, I mean, we have been a democracy. We have been a democracy. In a democracy, we elect people to represent our interests and our values. Are we voting for people who represent those interests and values? Are we paying attention to that? Or are we being distracted and voting for people who don't share these interests and values? How do you vote? Who are you voting for?
Well, and when Reagan passed, Vanessa, when Reagan passed the 1986, was it 87?
The IRCA, yeah, the amnesty.
Right. It's arbitrary what we allow. It's arbitrary what we allow sometimes. I know of a nurse who came as a child with her father across the border, and they came undocumented, and that whole family stayed, and that whole family were able to take advantage. And she is a major nursing leader, but she now says, well, they should come legally, right? We paid our taxes, we did this and that. But so did, as you said, most of the undocumented inhabitants.
I mean, it's so arbitrary, and it becomes more and more arbitrary. And to see people, when people run the gauntlet, and when we find somebody who can get their green card now because they just happened to get here in 2000, and their brother filed for them in April of 2001, and then they never left, or they, and so they can get a green card, or they came here without papers, but have never left and never been arrested, and their child has now just joined the Marines, and so they can get parole in place, which will allow them to have a lawful entry, which then allows that child, when the child turns 21, because sometimes they join the Marines at 18, so when the child turns 21, they can file for the papers and they don't have to leave, so they don't have the 10-year thing. Or I had the family where the youngest sister of 10 children, the youngest one at 16, they all came in without papers. At 16, she married a U.S. citizen, got her green, this is before the 1997 law. She married this guy, got her green card through him. 3 years later, got her citizenship. I don't know how this teenager just moved. This kid, I finally got to meet her. She's amazing. So she married, she green carded, she citizened, she became a citizen, she filed for her mother, for her father, and for all 9 siblings. Boom, 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 boom. That's a separate application. It was $110, now it's $625. Somehow she boom, 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 boom. She filed for all of these people. And one by one, they have all gotten their papers. I got the papers for the ex-wife of one of the older brothers because she was the baby. So one of the brothers was married when his younger sister filed for him. And then that marriage broke up. But because that woman was married to that man at the time, the sister-in-law, she's still protected by that law. So we got her the green card. We got the green card from the niece because the niece was born in 2001 when the aunt did the thing. And so she's it worked for that family. But another family had that same 16-year-old gotten married in 2002 and done the same thing. That 16-year-old wouldn't have gotten her papers. She wouldn't have become a citizen. She wouldn't have been able to file for all these people. This whole family would still be undocumented. So it's just this weird, and it doesn't, again, it all comes back to and all of these people are working. They all have jobs. They're productive members of our community. They're paying taxes, right? So it comes back to they're here, they're working, they're contributing. Maybe every once in a while, they drive too fast or something, right? There's some kind of thing. But for the most part, folks are here living their lives and contributing to our community one way or another, or many ways. And some people make the cut and some people don't. And it's just not realistic. And to just keep tightening and tightening the vise, and this government is just tightening it, right, to the point where they're now saying, we're going to take away people's citizenship. People who applied for citizenship, we're going to take it away. People who were born here, if they can't show that both of their parents on the day of their birth were green card or citizens, we're going to take that away from them. They're just tightening it and tightening it and tightening it. And that's not what our country clearly needs, because we look out and we see that we depend on these people.
That was pulled because somebody wanted to run on immigration as a problem. Would that have impacted some of these?
Yes, there are many reform proposals right now. There's the Dignity Act, which was sponsored in Congress right now. Salazar in Florida and, I just forgot her name. Victoria, she's a Democrat. It's a Republican woman from Florida and a Democratic woman from Texas, and they co-sponsored it, and I believe Salud Carbajal has signed on to that Dignity Act. I don't know if Julia Brownlee has signed on yet. And that has, border enforcement, more technology. It's going to create concentration camps for people who are seeking asylum. I mean, that's not what they call them. They call them asylum processing centers. And they'll just be there for 3 days. Query. I know, right? I was like, I pictured you. I was like, now she's going to have to go to Texas and look at these asylum places. But it also made provision. The Dignity Act also makes provision for people who have DACA will get a green card tomorrow. It also makes provision for a lot of people with TPS, green card tomorrow. So it does have some things that are humane. Sure. But will Mike Johnson, who's the Speaker of the House, will the committee, the Immigration Committee, which is run by the Republican Party, because they're the majority, so that party controls what gets discussed in the little committee, will the chair of that committee even discuss the Dignity Act? If they do, and they say, yeah, we actually like this, yeah, da-da-da-da, and then they pass it to Mike Johnson for open discussion on the floor of the House of Representatives, will Mike Johnson let that happen? And then even if he does, will, what's his face, Purple Hands, the Kentucky dude, Mitch McConnell, will he let that come to a discussion in the Senate? Would Trump sign that? Huh? Clue? Who? It's not Mitch McConnell, is it? What's his name? It's Thune. John Thune, thank you. I knew as I was saying it, I was like, it's not him, right? John Thune. Well, I don't know. John Thune might let it. But would Trump sign it? So, no. No? Okay. So, who do you know in these states? Like, we need people to vote. They're going to radically gerrymander. We've got a gerrymandering, we've got a, SB 50 coming up on the ballot in November, which is going to be redistricting. How does that relate to immigration? Well, if we redistrict, if we don't redistrict California, we lose the Congress. Congress will be firmly entrenched in the Republican Party. Republican Party has shown over the last, since 1994, Pete Wilson, it has shown over and over again it's not interested in any kind of humane immigration or any sort of respectful or thoughtful immigration thing. So if it falls to the Republican Party and is deeply entrenched as a Republican place, Congress, then we're never going to have a chance. So we have to vote to allow California to be able to redistrict so that we can hold the Congress potentially in 2026 so that we can vote, so that we can get reform. Democracy, right? I mean, is there a better system? Is there a better system? This is our country. This is what we're here to fight for. This is why our families came here, was to be able to have these conversations in a church, if we choose to come to a church, to have these conversations, to argue with each other, and to push. So that's what we're doing next Sunday. I'll see you then. It's 3:30. Let's go. Thanks, everybody.